Hey everyone, it's Carly Hall, and today we are going to talk about Cricut's new offset feature. If you haven't updated your design space, you may need to update your design space to see the offset option. I'm running version 6.6.134, and I can see this icon right here. This tool is only available on the desktop app, so if you have a Windows computer or a Mac computer, you will have this tool available to you. It is not available on Android or Apple devices. So to get started, we're going to talk quickly about what an offset is. And you can kind of see the representation of what it is. It's creating a background layer that is just a little bit bigger than the shape or font that you're using to create a shadow or an additional layer. So I have a couple of use case scenarios that I want to show you why I would use it. So we are going to start with text and then we'll move on to images. So starting with your text tool, we are going to click on that. And you can type out any word. My go-to word is always hello. And I'm just going to use a regular sans serif font, and I'll show you a script font in just a little bit. So there's two reasons that I like to use offsets with words. The first one is to create a base layer where I can adhere my top layer to. So we'll do that first. We're going to create kind of like a bubble outline around the edge of our word. So with your word selected, you can click on the offset function. It'll appear when it's available, and it's in beta right now, so that just means that it's still in testing. So if you see any issues or having any issues, make sure to report those to Cricut. Now, the fun thing with the offset tool is it's a slider, so you can slide to negative values and actually make your font thinner if you need to, or you can scroll to positive values and keep on scrolling until you notice all of the insides of the letters disappear. So let me do that a little bit slower. So right now you can see the insides of the letters all have an offset too. So if I were to cut this out, I would have negative space right there. But if I keep on scrolling, it will get big enough to where those disappear. So that's usually my go-to on how big I want to make my offset. I want all of the insides to close in, so that I can have a really good background shadow layer. For your corner options, you have a rounded corner and a more straight edge, so you can see that I can straighten those out or round them out. I prefer rounded, but it's totally up to you. And then the weld offsets, you will only see this option if your text is still editable or it's ungrouped. So if you've welded your word, you won't see this option, but if I click it, I can actually create an offset for each individual layer. So if I wanted to spread this out across a project, I could have a background layer for each individual layer, or if I was making a banner and I wanted to have each letter on a different triangle, that would be a great use case scenario for that. So for my project, I am going to weld the offsets together because I want my word to be all together. So we'll click apply, and just like that, we have a perfect offset. So now I could cut this out of whatever material I want to use. We'll change the colors to make it a little bit happier. So I could cut the background layer out of cardstock or vinyl or iron-on, and then another layer out of white material and adhere that onto the top. So super easy peasy. I love this offset tool. I'm so happy that Cricut finally released it. So that's use case scenario number one, creating a background layer for your entire word. The next one, we are going to type out hello again. We'll use a script font for this one, and I'm going to adjust the letter spacing and bring all these together so that they're connected and weld them all together. If I wanted to create a background layer for each letter, I would not weld them, but since I want to make a layer for everything, I'm going to weld them. Okay, you can see that I lost the O there, so let me undo that. And a little trick is you can click arrange, send to the back, and then re-weld, and you shouldn't have that issue. So if you're running into that issue, if your word is already really big like this, just send that to the back. That's a bug in Cricut Design Space, so that's recently what I found to be the most helpful. All right, so I have my word. Now for this use case scenario, this font is really thin. It's such a beautiful font, but these little tails are so skinny, and so when I cut them smaller, it's really difficult for my Cricut to cut that small. So instead of having to choose a different font, I'm just going to thicken up those lines just a bit. So we're going to choose offset again. And instead of using the slider, I'm going to type in my own values. So I'm going to start down all the way at 0.04, and then I just kind of clicked on the outside area. And you'll notice that it still needs a little bit of work. So you can see that the inside of this one, it's recognizing it, but the insides of the others, it's not. So let's actually back that up and not weld it together, and let's see what happens. So without it welded, it actually likes it better. So this is why it's still in beta, I think, because you can see that it's a little bit glitchy. I'm losing the inside of my E right here, which we have a hack for if we can't get it. But you can see there it is right there, so 0.05. And I'm going to click apply. So good to note that this application or this use case works better when all of the letters are not welded together yet. So hopefully this will make sense after I click apply, and you'll see what I'm doing. So I'm going to click apply, but you can play around and make this as thin or as thick as you want. Click apply. And then I just want the gray layer. And you can see now I have a thicker version of my word. So I'm not going to layer these on top of each other, but instead I just want my lettering to be a little thicker so that it cuts just a little bit better on my Cricut. So that is the use case scenario number 2. So number 1, creating a true background layer that you can adhere your project to. And number 2, just making your fonts a little bit thicker so that you're not running into cut issues where fonts are too thin. And I definitely don't have to go that thick. So I can come back over here and play around and do 0.03, for example, and then click apply. And we can compare what we like more. So if we wanted just a little bit more bold, you can play around with that. So I use this all of the time in Silhouette Studio and Adobe Illustrator when a font is just not cutting properly and I just need it to be a little bit thicker. So that's number 2. For the next application, we are going to choose any image that you want, or you can even upload an image. But I am going to show you an image that has multiple pieces for the purposes of this application. So for example, this birthday cake, or something that just has a lot of pieces, these tattooed arms, or these little cacti, succulents, anything you want. I'll show you a couple so that you can get a good feel for it. Oh, I actually think I like the colored ones more. All right, let's insert those onto our canvas. And we are going to use this one. So if I were to cut this out, everything would cut with a different color. So it'd have this one green color, this additional green color, and then the brown color. One of the uses that I like to use offsets for is to create printable stickers. So if I wanted to turn this into a sticker, what normally people would do is they would click flatten, and what would happen is your Cricut would cut all of these little pieces, and then you'd be left with this green piece, four green pieces, all these little pieces, and then the pots, which usually is not what people want. So we're going to unflatten that, and instead we're going to make an offset layer so we can make one unified sticker, or 3 stickers depending on what you want to do. So first we will make one sticker all together. So we're going to click offset, and then I wish I could move this piece, but I can't. So we're going to move the image down first and then click offset, and then I can play with the distance. So for this, I want everything to be covered in my offset. So I want it to be one whole sticker, but I don't want it to be too crazy big. So this looks good, but I have a little piece missing here. Maybe even just a little bit smaller. Too small. Let's stay here, and then we'll deal with this little piece in a second. I want to weld my offsets, but if you didn't, you could make individual backgrounds and then you could weld them together. So I can show you that too. But we are going to start with our background layer and weld them all together. So we're going to click apply, and black actually looks really cool, but I think I'll do white. So I don't want this little cutout. So we have the option to delete that out. So right now it sees it as a print then cut. We're going to turn it to a basic cut. And then we're going to choose contour. To get rid of any insides that you want to hide, you can just say hide all contours and it will delete it out. And just like that, that little piece is gone. So let's change it to white. And now we can see that we have this beautiful sticker. And then when we click flatten, you can kind of barely see it, but I'll change my canvas color. If you didn't know you can change your canvas color, you can click on the bottom right here and then the color swatch. And I like doing like a really light gray so I can see when I'm working with stickers. And then I can resize this to make it a printable sticker. So now when I print it out, my printer will print the green succulent cacti, and then my Cricut will just cut around the outermost layer. So that is a really, really cool use case scenario. All right, so now that we have this one, let's make individual backgrounds for all of these little plants. So we will start with the same image. We will unflatten it and delete out the background. Now these three are attached together and these two are attached together, and it doesn't look like I can just easily separate them. So in order to use the contour function, like I did to delete that little piece, we need to change this to a basic cut, and we'll change it back. So we'll ungroup these, and then we need to split these three pots apart. We can either contour them or we can slice them apart, so whatever you prefer. And I think I'm going to slice them apart. So to slice them apart, we're just going to use a shape, and I have a full tutorial on this, but I like to just cover the image that I'm trying to slice away and select the image that I'm slicing from at the same time. So I have the square and the pots, and then we'll click slice. We can delete out the gray layers, and then we're just left with this individual pot. So we can keep on doing that until we get all the pots separated. So again, I have the pot selected and the square, and I'm slicing those apart and then deleting out the gray ones because I don't need those. And then we have an individual pot, and we have our last pot. So I think that's the easiest way to get these apart. And then we need to slice out these two so that those are separated as well. So we'll just cover up the first one and select the layer with two. If you don't know how to select both, I just clicked on the layer, and then while holding on the shift key, I'm also selecting the next green layer, and then click slice. Delete out the gray layers, and you're left with individual little plants. Okay, so now that we've sliced them all apart and they're all individual, you can either individually make offsets for them or highlight them all at the same time so they're all even. We are going to individually do these so that we can weld them together in one move. So instead of doing them all three together, we're going to click weld offsets so that we don't have to manually do that. That would make more sense. So we're just going to click apply, and then our offset is welded behind, and we'll do that for each individual one. Oops. All right, so now we have 3 stickers, and the last step is just to flatten them down if you're doing a print then cut. And you are ready to start printing out your stickers and cutting them. I know I went a little bit advanced with the slicing and all that fun stuff, but I feel like that's really important to know if you're using an image from Design Space or an image that you've uploaded and you need to break it apart. So again, just a quick recap. The first use case scenario is just to create a bubble background layer behind your image, either your text or your font. The second use case that I love using is just to slightly offset your font to make it a little bit thicker, just to make it work a little bit better with your Cricut machine. And the last is to create an offset layer for printables, which probably is my favorite because you can see how elevated this sticker went from just being individual pieces to an entire set or individual stickers. So this is great for all of you sticker makers out there. If you have other use case scenarios that you love, there are so many other ones. I could do a full hour class on this, but I want to keep this short. So if there are other use case scenarios that you love using offset for, leave them in the comments. Or if you have any questions or concerns, leave those in the comments too. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope that you like it and subscribe to my channel. All right, I'll see you in the next video.